Hey there everybody, welcome to this third lesson on the introduction to ZBrush. In this third part, we'll start to get into the program after having talked about the program and after the interface. Here we'll start adding in 100% work with DynaMesh. I'll make a nose and I'll explain how the DynaMesh procedure works and how to work on the different elements and brushes. And how ZBrush's workflow actually is when we work on things. Let's open the program and start with the lightbox adding a sphere in DynaMesh at 64. This one right here. Double click and open the document. The first thing you're going to see is a completely different interface to the standard one. This is because it's the interface that I use professionally. What I've done is place all of the elements here in a much more accessible way, so it'll be easier to manipulate. To load this interface, I'm going to give you, with the course, a file that you have to load in. We're going to go to Preference, Config, and you put in Load UI, okay? Now, let's look for the file that I'm going to send you. In this case, this one here called DynaMesh Interface ZBrush. Hit Open, and you'll get a window that will tell you that you have to leave the program to restart the interface. So we'll leave the program and come back, okay? Once we're in, you'll see this interface. Okay? Well, let's get started. To work comfortably, ZBrush gives us the option of working in Symmetry. It's really important that we do that with this program when we're working with some elements. In this case, we have to go to the perspective view to work better. We have to get rid of it to work better. The symmetry, we can activate or deactivate it with the X key. In the same way, we can go to transform as well. We have to place it here in the axis we want. If we put it on the Y-axis instead of the X-axis, as you can see, the axis is in the top part and the bottom part. This is important to work with in the way we want to. Here in Transform, we have the symmetry, and we could apply a circular symmetry. Now I have to apply the symmetry on the X-axis and also a circular symmetry. Also, we can choose the number of points. So now, as you can see, I can work like this. If I add more points, the level of points will go up. Okay. Let's go back with Ctrl-Z, and we'll continue. Once we have the program open, we'll take away the symmetry as well. We'll take away the radial symmetry and leave it on the X-plane. To make some of the elements we have to use a mesh on the 3D object, this mesh here. This is a DynaMesh mesh. What does that mean? I can add a different object. For example, we can go to Subtool and insert a sphere. This one here. And I'm going to insert a sphere, a 3D sphere, this one here. Okay, I've created the sphere. The difference with the other one is that if I stretch this one with move, for example, or either elastic or topological, we'll get to a moment where the mesh, from stretching it so much, I explained this in the introduction, the mesh will just become untreatable. So let's go to Geometry and activate DynaMesh to update the mesh. The difference is that straight away we can work with a sphere and DynaMesh. That's what we had before. Simply activate the DynaMesh and then we have this updated. And we can also increase the resolution levels. Now to make the nose, we're going to deactivate the visor and we'll start working with the brushes we have here. The most important things you'll see here, again from this button, we'll find many more brushes. From here, we can activate the symmetry on the x-axis, and we'll choose the standard brush. And now we can start making the shape, no worries. Remember that from here, we can modify the intensity. The lesser the intensity, the less strength the brush will have. Now just click, or obviously, it's better for you to work with a graphic tablet. If you have one, the result will be much better. As you can see, we're adding in the geometry. Now, with the Shift key held, we can soften. You can see now that the brush is in a light blue color. That's because we activate the smooth. The smooth brush will always be activated with the Shift key. Now, in this way, we smooth out the element. Okay? Now we can continue adding in the geometry. It's important that as well, when you work with Z, to have another screen or at least some kind of reference to see what you're working on. It's not the same to make a nose if you don't have a reference in front. Whether it's natural or a photography. Okay, as you can see, we're going to start stretching the mesh. If we activate the mesh visor, and we'll see what we're slowly stretching. Now we hit Control and move the mouse out of the model to update the mesh. Control is also used to do a mask select. I just hit Control, see, and I make a mask select. With this mask selection, we can work on the part that's not masked without affecting the part that is. If inside the mask we Control click, I soften the mask. The more I click, the more we soften the edge of the mask. If on the contrary we click outside the model, I'm inverting the mask. It's really important that you learn this. Leave the mask, Control, click and dragging outside. As I've said, this is really important. As with the rectangle selector, we can also make other different shapes. With the Control key held and the button stroke, and in stroke, choose, for example, on loop. Now we could select, for example, the nose on its own much easily. Invert the mask, and we would have the nose selected. Okay, now with Control Alt held, take away the mask. Look at how the cursor changes color. Okay, be careful. It's very important in this program to work with masks, with brushes, and some of the functions we'll talk about later. Okay, we'll keep on working with this. Control and soften the nose, and now invert the mask. Okay. Now grab the move brush, and we can stretch, or just modify the nose. Remember that to remove the mask, we just have to Control click and drag outside of the model. We have the clay brushes that simulate clay. Here, each artist has a bit of liberty as to which brushes they use. Now, for example, we'll use the clay brush. And controlling the intensity, we'll start creating. And remember, with Alt, we can actually remove as well. Okay. We'll start sculpting this area of the nose. With Alt, we can remove, and we can also add, however we wish. There's no worries here. Another important thing is that each action that I do is adding here another square more. Okay, this line here isn't a timeline, it's an action line. It's a kind of Z control. or a shortcut to Control Z. If I want to go back 5 actions, here I could just do that. I can move this line to see the steps in a progression. It's important as well to know this detail. If you make a mistake in anything, you just have to go back. You don't have to use Control Z. You can go much further back. This way you have complete control of what you're doing. Okay, let's move on. We'll make the brush smaller and we'll continue working. Now, for example, we're going to start using the standard brush. With this brush, we'll make some incisions to mark the areas. From here, we now have a whole array of options. The Inflate brush, which is pretty important too. With it, we can inflate and deflate the areas. Remember as well that you can update the geometry with Control Move. When we have the shape more or less ready, we can go up in resolution of DynaMesh. For now, we're going to soften this and work on it. Okay, grab now the clay brush. And as you can see, I'm using different brushes so you can see what each one does. Here we have the dynamic trim and the polish that are to flatten areas. It's not to soften them, it's to flatten them. So with these brushes, we can flatten the areas of the nose. Okay. If the effect seems a little bit too strong, you can always lower the intensity. Another important element in the ZBrush is the lazy mouse. This option is on the strokes panel. Okay, so we can activate the lazy mouse and we can make the ratio bigger. For example, we'll put it at 15. Now the brush is preceded from a kind of controller. We see a line, and the line will become more or less controllable the more the ratio. This option has to be kept in mind because we're going to be able to make more details, okay, with the lazy mouse. And it's going to help us a lot in our work. I don't want to make the eyes, but we can work on this area better. We're going to zoom in. And we can raise the resolution in DynaMesh. Control, move the mouse. And I'm going to update it. Okay. And we'll just move on. Okay, we can practice a little making the structure of the head and the skull. Alright, hold Ctrl, Shift, and Alt. I'm going to explain how to cut a piece off. With these keys held, we do this, and you can see we get a red colored box. If I hold Ctrl Shift, we get a green square. Okay, we use this to work on selections and eliminate areas. If we take this now, in green, we tell the program that the green part is the one we want to be visible. The other part is going to be hidden. It won't disappear though. If we hit the hidden key, it will completely eliminate the area, the hidden area. Now with the close holes, we can close the piece. In this case, we want to do the same thing, but we want to eliminate this part. So Ctrl Shift, Alt, we'll select this area. Now we'll select the hidden and close holes to close the piece. Remember that I can select with the lasso and make the selection easier. Alright, we do this, and now hidden and close holes. If we're missing any parts, we can select them and eliminate them. No problem. Hidden, close holes. Sometimes you'll get parts of the model that we can't see. To solve this, we'll activate this box. We'll select the double button. Now we can see this element. And now we can make another DynaMesh to update the mesh and then soften this part. Or just eliminate it. Like that. With hidden close holes. Okay. We're going to make another DynaMesh. And there we go. Just have the nose selected. We didn't really need to do this for this exercise, but even so, we're going to learn a little more. Hidden close holes. Okay. Soften. And we'll continue working on this element. When we have the shapes well defined, we can soften. So it's not too marked. Then later we can flatten the areas. Just like this. Remember, you can also use the Inflate brush to inflate wherever we want. Okay. Okay, so we don't have to go too much into this exercise, as we basically just need to learn the different uses of the different brushes and how to combine them with DynaMesh. As you can see, it's basically used for this. If we increase the details, remember that we can increase the resolution to update the geometry by activating another DynaMesh with Control. In this case, we're not going to do much more because the nose is pretty much done. We don't have to stretch it anymore. If we want to make it bigger, then yeah, we could use it. We could use the DynaMesh. As you can see, it's just a question of, you know, just finish working on the nose. As you can see, we just have to keep moving the camera and just kind of sculpting the geometry of the model. The advantages of this interface is that you have everything a bit more at hand. If not, you'd have to go into the menus and it would never end. It's much easier this way. Alright, let's leave this little exercise here because we could obviously spend 2 hours on the nose, but this was just a practice. Okay, this was just to practice a little bit. Okay, let's leave this here, and in the next lesson, we'll go on to explain the Z-spheres, which sound like the Dragon Balls, but they're not. See you later!